Kill the audio. There we go.
Are we going?
Hey, welcome back.
I'm not ready.
Welcome back to
I'm
the
not ready.
Kansas
I don't
City,
feel ready, guys. I'm
the
sorry.
Kansas City Underground podcast. Cory has to leave in a little bit, and so we have to get this.
You just push start. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to try to look at what we're talking about right now.
Well, let me tell you what we're talking about.
Okay.
This is episode 3 in a series on the 6 elements of mDNA or movement DNA. We have covered Jesus is Lord, which calls us to this full allegiance to Jesus. We give all of our life to him, everything in every way. The Underground contextualizes that movement DNA from Alan Hirsch by using that language about we return to Jesus in everything, every way. We don't just jump to strategy and systems and ideas. We go, Jesus, what are you doing? How can we join you? Then last week, we talked about missional incarnational impulse and this whole idea that we have been sent into networks of relationships. Our Father in heaven is a sending God. He sent his Son. The Father, the Son sent the Spirit. The Father, Son, the Spirit send the church. So we have to identify to whom have we been sent? What network of relationships, what people, what place? And so those were hopefully helpful episodes. And this week, Cory, hopefully you have caught up to where we are. We're going to talk about disciple making. This is something we rarely do. Nothing. I'm still just trying to figure out.
I don't think you sent me the right outline is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it is. Click into the disciple making one.
Oh, look at that. There's lots of tabs. Dude,
this is the fastest we've ever gotten into an episode, and that's what's throwing you off. Is you're like, I normally have plenty of time to make something up.
Well, and we have a few minutes to talk about it, maybe pray. But so this is serious. This must not be a very anointed one. Just all right. So we're talking about disciple making.
I figure you could talk about disciple making without much prep,
without much anointing.
Something that you are passionate about.
Of course, I'm here. I'm present. I just want the listener to know that I'm fully present. I'm fully president.
Whew. I wish you were. Here's the line: movements don't grow through consumers; they grow through disciples who make disciples. And I have to tell you this too, man. I'm almost done with the book that you sent me last week by Cindy Anderson, which you got to interview before.
Yeah, Multipliers Mindset.
It's a great book.
It's so good.
And probably just going to preempt another series here. We just stop right here and just start
another
today.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But she talks about this as well. Movements aren't fueled by programs, events. They're not fueled by content delivery. They're fueled by disciple making. And man, that has been a core part of the Kansas City Underground since day one.
Yeah.
And it's what we're going to talk about today. So again, we're basing this series off of this 6 elements of mDNA that our friend Alan Hirsch would say is found in every movement globally and historically. And if we want to see multiplying movements, we have to pay attention to these 6 elements. And one of those is focusing on disciple making. We've been through a series where we contrasted, hey, Western discipleship means this. We're talking about obedience-based disciple making, where we're equipping everyday leaders to give away what they're learning immediately, help people become more like Jesus. Yeah, so today we're just going to explore this a little further.
I remember once I was driving through a developing country that was it had historically a lot of Christian presence in it, and there's some movement stuff happening in certain areas, and then there's the classic missionary approaches of the West kind of coming to this place, and there was this giant church building. I may have told this story before. There was this giant, beautiful church building, and we drove past it, and I was asking the locals about it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I don't know, they threw out some denomination, the Methodists or the whoever built that." And I was like, "Cool. What is it used for?" Nothing. It's this like giant, gorgeous building in the midst of extreme poverty. Completely irrelevant to the people. And it's like I'm saying that to contrast the opposite of what fuels movement.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
right. So in one sense, like movement is, it's in some ways it's the simplest thing that we can say within disciple making movements is that it's disciple making that fuels the movement. It's in the name.
Yeah,
Disciple making movements, right? So it's actually it's the new followers of Jesus, new spiritual families that emerge and multiply. That is in the essence, it is the movement.
Yeah.
And then if you're coming from our world, Western, or just the paradigm that thinking comes from, we think we build that big thing. We prioritize. Can you say that word for me?
Prioritize.
That's really, really solid enunciation.
I'm growing in my pronunciations.
It's really, really good, man. That we build that perfect building, we make that perfect program, we build it how it's like, so that the structure is there, so that all these other things can happen, and it's really putting the cart before the horse. And so I'm going to say in underground, the unique position that we're in, it's not unique. I mean, the place that we find ourselves in is needing to make sure disciple making is what fuels all of this, while recognizing building that trellis as we go to help get there in the Western context. But in the end, if you skip past the disciple making piece, which is, it's ironically easy to do, then you're just stuck with the shell. You're stuck with a big building in the middle of poverty, in the middle of a place that's irrelevant.
Yeah. I want to say something here too about what we don't mean when we talk about disciple making. This has been, like a soapbox I've been on. We don't mean conversions.
That's good, bro.
We don't mean you prayed a sinner's prayer. And I have to say, in a lot of, I want to be in a posture of repentance as well on this, because I feel like in the last, 2 or 3 years, I've made that point so much, and I'm like, I don't know that I hear DMM people talking about ongoing disciple making. And I wonder if in disciple making movements, they are also just still really focusing on conversions, and how many people met Jesus, and which is good. I long for that, desire that. I want that to always be true. People that meet Jesus. I just don't hear about like the ongoing piece, but in Cindy's book, is it Cindy or Cynthia? Okay. Well, it says the author's name is Cynthia, but then she refers to herself as Cindy.
Right.
So.
Exactly.
Anyway,
I mean,
so
it's normal.
The chapter I just finished the other day, I was listening to it, and she was like, "Here's what we don't mean: saying a sinner's prayer and conversion." And I was like, let's go.
Yeah.
And she went on at length about how important it is that when we say disciple making, it goes back to some of the conversations we've had over last podcasts about being so present in someone's life that you're able to watch and understand how they are orienting their life around Jesus, moving from unbelief to belief in Jesus, and you're getting to do it with them. You're not just hearing how they did it and hoping you can go figure it out. It's like you're working it out in real time. And so I repent of that. I'm grateful that I'm hearing someone who is a key leader in the world in disciple making movements go, let me put this chapter in there and the importance of it. But let me kick something back to you to talk about, though, because when we talk about we want to see movement, disciple making movements, we talk about seeing it like one of Alan's 5-fold pictures for movement is rapid multiplication. The tension that I feel around how long it takes to walk with someone while also doing rapid multiplication. Like, I want you to walk so closely with me that you go, I know what it looks like to walk with Jesus and bend my life to his rhythms and his ways, but rapid multiplication. Like, how do you hold the tension in those in disciple making movements?
By replicating leaders and yourself, because you can't be what you just described. You can't be in all those settings. So we're talking about hundreds, thousands of churches. There's one Brian. So Brian can't walk with someone that incarnationally, right? We have to reproduce. We have to reproduce leaders. So there is a slowness to it,
right?
But as there's exponential growth, both sideways,
breadth.
Yeah, there's breadth of recruiting. There's breadth of new workers. There's addition that comes with it before multiplication in some ways, right? You're adding. And then as they go and do what we're talking about and plant the gospel and find new people interested, new oikoses, new settings, then there's a lot of stuff happening slowly, that is rapid. Like, I know it's like so weird to think about, even though we probably all have a dozen examples in our own worlds where things that appear slow but have some breadth and then have some multiplicative oomph to it, that you take a step away and now within a relatively short amount of time it's rapid.
Yeah.
Because it's the breadth of it and the exponential reality in the certain places that it's taken root. And that's just the key mustard seed analogy of the kingdom at play in disciple making. It's what we see in the book of Acts. It's what we see in movements all around the world. It's not rapid as in fast and microwaved. It's actually slow and embedding the multiplication of it. But like, you can be slow and then within a year or two see multiple generations, and that those are not at the opposite end of the spectrum.
That's right. They don't have to be mutually exclusive.
Right. And I know you're asking that question to tee it up because you're passionate about it too. And I don't want to say it appears rapid, but it's not rapid. It actually is rapid.
Right.
But it's not fast and microwaved like what we assume.
Rapid means,
so there's an assumption when we hear movements, or even like maybe church leaders or people around here, they're things that multiply that fast, but there's no way that they're deep. There's just no way that they're getting the theological training that they need to whatever. It's like, you're probably right to be at maybe a position where you're standing on a pulpit and you're leading people, or even an elder role of a church.
But even is that deep? Or you just got training to do
exactly.
something. Yeah.
No, exactly. So it's like, it's reparadigming a lot of those conversations. But I would just say that's why we talk about obedience, and that's why we talk about transformation. That actually ends up being what validates people as leaders. And there's always the mess. But
I think the most helpful thing you said in that was all of it.
Thanks, buddy.
but also that line of, a lot of things are happening slowly. So it's like an immediacy to reproduction, but there's not an urgency to an end product.
Yeah. That's good.
That's what has been helpful to me, is to like, no, I want to increase the immediacy that you immediately, and you feel the urgency to reproduce and go do, but I want to lower the expectation that you reach an end game, or that you have to reach that before you get to go do.
That's really good. There is always immediacy.
Yeah.
There's immediacy of obedience. There's immediacy of hearing what God is saying and putting it into practice. There's immediacy of talking about Jesus to the people around you. You may not even yet know anything else about Jesus except that one thing that God just showed you in that one DBS that you were in. There's always immediacy.
Yep.
And so in that sense, rapid multiplication can actually come through immediacy in some ways, right? There's something happening immediately, but like,
you can't transform life in 2 days.
Exactly.
Like, it's going to take their whole lifetime. And so,
why do we even have to say that? It's like, we should know that as humans, but it's so, you're right. We are so like, this has to happen. This has to happen now, because this is America. I just ordered my number 8 at McDonald's. I don't even know what that is. Ugh. I don't actually eat much McDonald's. Ugh. But
I feel sick now.
I mean, I would eat it right now if it was here. I'd probably eat 2 of them. But so whatever it is, I ordered it now. I expect it now. And we're like that in the church. We're like that in anything that we're like trying to implement in our lives. There's expectation of immediacy, right? Like, I wish there was like a disciple making Ozempic. Man,
make it.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend anyone.
But it is why we have to spend so much time going, we don't mean conversion. That's why we have to do this, because we do too much equation around that idea, and it is. I just think it's wrong. I don't know how hard I want to hammer. I'm stuttering because I'm like, it is inappropriate for us to just equate it with a sinner's prayer and not an ongoing come into my life and let's work this out.
You know what's funny is that I actually don't equate DMM pockets at all with, say, the sinner's prayer. I equate shallow evangelism.
She did. So.
No, it's fine. I'm saying most DMM, even those
Well, she
people.
was saying some of them were. She's saying anybody
Yeah.
that only does that is missing what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I would say that's really not DMM
Yeah, right.
people.
That's
What
fair.
what I would say, and maybe this is us. So we're both in our 40s now, like young, like sexy 40s, right? I mean, I don't even have to say that. You all know. Uh, but we are. Well, sorry, I'm totally thrown off of what I was saying. We come from a generation. We come from a time
Have you ever heard of the Greek god
of.
Narcissus?
That sounds pagan. No, I'm all about Jesus. So there's this. We come from a time of like evangelism from the stage, and there's still a lot of that. Don't get me wrong, but like these mass evangelism rallies, we go down, we say this prayer. There's the discipleship, quote unquote, is always like a connection then to another church. So we go through the evangelizing. We get you to come up front. We get you to say, "I don't want to go to hell." We see. And I'm not trying to belittle that. I'm just saying that has been the evangelism that we know, or couple it with like what you see on TV. There's a lot of that in our generation. And so I think a lot of that flavor here is the gospel in either a sentence, a conversation that can be done on an elevator, or maybe a conversation from the stage from a really gifted evangelist, right? And then the response is an immediate turn from everything. I proclaim Jesus as Lord. And then what you have to do is then connect you to a church. Well, it's in that connecting part where we've always struggled. And because of that, because there's a relational disconnect, right? So if you don't know anyone in that setting, or even an avenue for this. So we come from that. And that obviously it's not movemental. It's also not very effective. And there's a lot of people who came to Jesus in that way. So don't get me wrong, there's some effectiveness, but on a larger level, obviously we even see mass response and then mass drop off. Because that's the style. That's what you're kind of buying into. If we've actually taken some of that in what we're trying to do, let's say, right? We're trying to see disciple making fuel movement. You can actually take that proclamational evangelism style and just import it into this replication process. And that's where we can assume, we're not talking about conversion. We're talking about, because I think movement's always about pressing into pockets of relationship. The evangelistic strategy is where we sometimes differ, where there's going to be some pockets that are going to be like, we're going to proclaim the short, sweet gospel message. You're finding persons of peace immediately. You're in the harvest. You're finding it, and people are passionate about it. And but their whole thing is they're trying to get into pockets. We're not against that if it was effective. And there's sometimes it will be effective. Sometimes it will be. Some pockets in America, it is effective.
The launch of the church, man.
Yeah, like there's
Peter proclaimed it, 3,000 people.
Yeah, there is effective pockets in the U.S.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be an element of immediacy and response transformation. The Holy Spirit's going to break through in miracles and signs of wonders that open the doors of immediacy. So we're all about that. What we train towards is people who can ask questions, live life, come alongside, put those kingdom statements out there, be listeners like Jesus, ask those questions and join God. We're going to train towards the slow. And because we think that actually leads to ongoing disciple making that can replicate way better in our context. And it's so important to talk about. We're not just talking about conversion. So freaking important. What we're really talking about is even the way to get to disciple making. We're passionate about, we got to love people. We got to serve people. We got to ask questions. We got to be present.
Yeah.
Wow, that was really long. I'm sorry.
That's all right. And even the, again, the biblical model there of saying, well, Peter proclaimed in 3,000 people, but then you have Acts 2:42 through 47, which is like, let's talk about the ongoing journey that began. Like something opened up, but then it was like they met daily. So let's lean into that daily word.
Daily, house to house, slow yet rapid multiplication. I mean, that totally was happening in Jerusalem, that early church.
So Casey Underground language on this one. We are disciple makers who are becoming like Jesus and joining him on mission. So this isn't about programs. It's about identity. And we want to make this practical, and that's what we've been saying. We don't want to just live in these ideas. So I'm going to hit on the identity piece, and then we'll get into really quickly, so this doesn't get too long, just like what are the tools we use in this. The identity piece is important for us and for movement. So again, just another contrast. I was working with a leader the other day that has created, like she's looking at church planting. Essentially, I was like, well, we don't use church planting language. It's not what we do. Because that communicates that we're planting the church somewhere, and we're not trying to like plant Christians in places.
Right.
We use the language of disciple makers that plant the gospel, and as new disciples are made, church emerges. She's like, what? And I was like, let's talk about organizing identities. She's like, what? And so as we get into this, it's like, when you use the language of member, small group leader, staff member, elder, none of these things are communicating making. And mostly it's about membership and being included and belonging to something, which is a good thing. We all need belonging. But like that word is not leading to movement. Yeah. It is actually actively working against movement by communicating non-action. So the word disciple maker and the identity component is it assumes I have a responsibility to embrace Matthew 28, to join Jesus from Acts 1:8 to go into all the world. So for those listening that are outside the city, number one, does your language communicate active participation and moving outward, planting the gospel in new networks? For those in the city, have you thought about that recently? Like our core identity as a person that's a part of the underground is I'm a disciple maker first.
Wow. I want to be a part of that. That sounds really cool.
There's really, when I say we're going to talk about practices, man, it's all
we talking about practice.
It's all of life. It really is.
Yeah.
But there's like one primary tool for us that is the way that we help people move toward Jesus. Then it's Discovery Bible Studies. Talk about that one, Cory.
Yeah. I mean, it's really, it's something I feel like early on when you sit and you look at the way the gospel moves globally, the tool of discovery being the primary disciple making tool is just present. It's everywhere. There isn't movement without some form of Discovery Bible Study. And what I mean by that is getting people directly to hear from God and for themselves within a community, and immediately making it so that you don't rely on me to lead you, to teach you, to feed you like the mama bird to the baby birds. Like it's like, I mean, I've used that analogy probably many times on this podcast, but it's like that's kind of the regurgitating reality of the disciples that we make. If they are dependent upon my knowledge, they're dependent upon my skill set or gifting, then it will never get away from me, which is the goal. It'll never be released, right? So for Discovery Bible Study, what we have to do is make sure that instead of us giving all of it, we are setting the table so that people can hear for themselves. And not only hear, but respond in obedience and respond in telling other people. Like that is the core. Wherever you're going, where you're seeing movement happen, the tool itself does not equal movement.
Right.
The tool of Discovery Bible Study, if you just implement Discovery Bible Study, won't necessarily equal to multiplication, but when you're in it, right? When you are in it, and I see myself, my primary, understanding, one, I'm a child of God. Two, I'm a disciple maker, right? Yeah. I'm a disciple and a disciple maker. When I understand that, who I am, and I'm living on mission, I'm finding where God's at work, and we're trying to make disciples in a group of people, and you're there, and there's always that, okay, what do I do? And we've talked about this so much, where it used to be, I now take them to this other place, this other group, this other building, this other pastor, whatever, and okay, now go. We're now saying, okay, if we're taking on the mindset of planting the gospel and seeing microchurches emerge from scratch, disciple making is the engine. Mm-hmm. Discovery Bible Study is our primary tool. Yeah. Because what it is just hearing God. Mm-hmm. We're teaching people to hear God. We're teaching it through the Word. We're teaching it through the Spirit. But we're like in both at the same time, we are teaching people to hear and obey what God is saying. So yeah, it's easy for us to take that tool and make it bigger than it is because it's just a tool. And then it's simultaneously just as easy to think it's only a tool. It's actually not a tool. It's a whole way of disciple making. We take ourselves out of the equation and we put the Holy Spirit and his word in the middle of the table and say, God, teach us.
Yeah. And when we say that's like the primary tool, we mean that.
Yeah.
Are there other tools? Yeah. You got to know who you were sent to. So we want to help people discover to whom have you been sent.
Can I push back? I don't know movement where there's other tools. And what I mean by that is like, there are other tools that will implement discovery.
What I'm saying is there are other things as Westerners we can learn that help us move toward DBS. Like
100%.
You could just pop up on some people and do your elevator pitch and go, would you like to do a discovery Bible study? But I'm not saying you can't do that. But what I push back on in most of the disciple maker pathways I lead is people that just want to just pop up and do a discovery Bible study somewhere. And because if they're leaning into just being like a good missionary leader wherever they go, it goes back to, is disciple making going to happen then or just conversion?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's more about the tools around the disciple maker to help them be fully formed so that they're thinking, I need to embed deeply in a context for the sake of, if I'm just popping up and doing a DBS with random people and they meet Jesus, how are they going to apprentice their life after me?
Totally.
And that's more what I'm saying. And
Gotcha.
that language of apprenticeship, which is like, if you want to help people follow Jesus, you have to be in their life. They have to be in yours. It's not going to work otherwise, which leads us to some of these questions that we popped up there of, do I know who I'm discipling? Am I consuming content or am I engaged in the life and the rhythms with people that I know their names, I know their stories, I know what they're going through, and we're journeying together. Who's discipling me? Who's ahead of me in the journey? Can I name that person? Can I talk about the rhythms in which I'm watching their life and learning how I do that with someone else? And, I guess the last question would be, who are they discipling that I'm discipling?
Yeah.
Am I elevating that as an expectation?
Yep.
Or am I not talking about it at all because I'm afraid of what might happen? So
it's good.
I won't talk about the context I'm in much right now because it's a little too early. But it's a new context that I've been engaging. And yesterday, hanging with this group of guys, and one of them was like, hey, I just want to know, is it cool if I invite some people to join us? I got a buddy that I wanted to join. And I talked to these two brothers, and they both said yes. But I wanted to ask the two of y'all if like we've shared a lot of personal stuff, I don't want to just throw somebody else into the mix. And I was like, wow, that's cool, man. Like, I want you to know, as someone that is engaging with you, I'm down. But then he went on kind of a rant where he was like, man, we're all going to be spreading to the wind within 9 months to a year. And if we don't get some other dudes up in here that we're discipling the way this dude's discipling us, it's not going to keep going. I was like, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it was that, like, that expectation is already in the room, in that environment of not you're the expert, but we're glad you're here. We trust you. And already an embracing of like, we got to give this away.
Yeah, I love that.
And that's like that's the temperature that I want to raise across groups in our city.
Yeah, that's good. So in that setting, you are you're the coach, mentor of a group of people who know Jesus, who are going out to their contexts, essentially, right? So you're kind of a catalyst, trainer, sparker. And so there are some people who are hearing that's going to be the setting that you're in sometimes, is that you can mobilize believers who are hungry. And then for a lot of people, a lot of just like you guys are listening to this because you are disciple makers in context. Like you're like, there are settings that you probably have or need to have where you are getting poured into. in a sense of like you're getting trained, you're walking alongside. That's why we have coaching and training stuff with
disciple making never ends for us.
100%. And then it's the reason why in underground we've tried to create as many pathways for equipping and coaching and coming alongside without owning it and without it being super programized.
Yeah.
So that's just the system within our hubs and kind of what we've landed on that we think is best. Movements all over the world is all of that. That's super organic and relational. There's always the coaching happens generationally. I'm pouring into a few, and then over time they're pouring into more. And so that happens here too, but we don't have those same relational system structures that makes it quite as natural.
Yeah.
So it's like, but that's the key, right? It's like we're reproducing, we're being cared for, we're anchoring in deep. And so when we go back to that idea of rapid, you can't microwave all of that.
Yeah.
But it is a process, and we're actually allowed to engage in the mission even when we're early on in that process. And so that's also not on the opposite end of the spectrum. We're actually allowed, when Jesus says, "Hey, follow me, I'll make you fishers of men," we're immediately taking that step into following Jesus. They're actually like, we're in that mission right away. We're part of what Jesus is doing. And Jesus, like, yeah, sometimes he threw them out there. They did some crazy stuff. Sometimes, it waited a little bit and that happened more down the line, but we got to see the disciples engage at the beginning. But they were also tethered in this family.
Yeah.
So like, that's always that balance that we're trying to do. Who are you discipling? What's your family that you're leaning into? Are you leaning into that such a way that you're actually never engaging the mission because you like your family too much, which is very common in the West?
Yeah.
I mean, all this is going back to this idea that if we're not making disciples, you're not growing or multiplying.
Yeah.
Like, put your eggs in that basket.
Yeah.
And if you're never multiplying or growing, then you can honestly say without shame, are we really doing this?
Yeah.
Or are we just kind of creating that big church building in the space that's not being used? It's like, are we really doing this? If we're really doing this, then we have to engage disciples on the ground. It's not going to be done with just believers. It's not going to be done programmatically. Engage in the harvest, see real new followers of Jesus emerge, and then you're living into movement principles.
Yeah, amen. Hey, I think we talk about disciple making all the time, so we could keep going, but we won't. We'll come back next week and we'll talk about liminality and communitas, which are real words.